What's up, man?
What's up, dude? How's everything going?
It's going great. I feel like it's been forever since we've done this because it has.
Yeah, it really has been. It's been a while. I think last time we did it, we were in like a little tiny closet in Starkville.
I
So
was,
things
I
have
was,
changed a little bit.
I was gonna say, I told my wife that my setup's a little bit better right now. Maybe not sound wise, but definitely behind me. We're not crammed in a little tiny space in my apartment closet.
That's right. That's right. I'm in a totally different state in a different apartment now for both of us. So it's definitely I think the sound might not be as good like you said, but definitely in a better place.
For
So I've got
sure.
more room.
Though the only
I can stretch right here. So
the only reason the sound's not better is because we were in a. I mean, what do you think? It was probably like a 6 by 4 room. Like a,
yeah.
it was not large at all, and we had sound panels nailed all over the walls. It was great.
It was
Um,
ideal for a college podcast, though, honestly.
no
So
doubt. So catching up, you're in Birmingham. Tell us about what you do. I know a little bit, but fill us
yeah,
in.
I can describe it to people, and I still don't think people know what I really do. So it is a little difficult, but no, it's pretty simple. So I'm essentially like a headhunter. Honestly, there's really no better way to describe it. So companies hire us, and we find employees for them. It's a really fun gig. We're getting to like get people to work, especially like during COVID and all that. We put a lot of people to work, and we have a really big family foundation where we put a lot of money in donations around like finding people jobs, even if it doesn't help our company out. So I really do love the company that I work for. We are different than headhunting because like we are so client focused, but that is essentially what I'm doing now. So I'm in sales for them, and I love it out here. I love the company. I've already kind of started working up towards another role here, so just really excited about the future, and I feel like I'll be in Birmingham for a while. So I love Birmingham. It's
That's
awesome.
awesome, bro. It's like a
Yeah.
quick plug for your company. Remind me the name of it.
Yeah, so it's Insight Global. That's the
Insight
name.
Global.
So yeah,
That's
love them.
awesome.
It's a great company. Everybody should definitely look it up. And if you need a job, hit us up. We would love to help you guys out. So
It's their job to get you a job. That's
absolutely.
awesome. Well, that's cool, dude. So we've named the podcast Cowbell Off Campus because obviously we used to have a podcast called Cowbell On Campus when we were at Mississippi
Right.
State. After we graduated, we've both moved away. Addison's in Birmingham. I'm in Texas. Since then, I've gotten married, got a job in Texas at Gateway Church, doing student ministry over here, and just having a blast. So
That's awesome.
it's crazy,
Yeah, I mean,
crazy
honestly,
to
like
think that we're so
thought I'd
far
be
away.
stuck in I thought I'd be stuck in Mississippi forever. So like
I
getting
know
out and like seeing you go to Texas and me go to Alabama, I mean, it is weird to
it's
see. So
crazy. How's the weather in Birmingham?
it's pretty good today. It's really great.
Really?
Honestly, it's not much different than Mississippi, which is kind of a letdown. I was hoping for some I guess like cooler summers and cooler winters too, honestly, but it's really not too much different. So
Bro, we haven't had rain here in over 50 days.
oh my
It's
gosh.
we, nothing. Everything is dry. And on 4th of July, there were forest fires and stuff everywhere
That is
because
crazy.
it has not rained here in so long.
That
It's
is wild. Yeah,
it
that's
is,
insane.
but it's hotter than ever. We've also hit like a streak of I don't know how many days of over 100 degrees, but it's different because like when me and my dad were playing disc golf in Mississippi when went to visit him, like I sweat way more playing disc golf there than I do here because of the
Right.
humidity. And I know every dad joke is about how humidity is worse than dry heat, but it seriously is so much worse because I can go play disc golf here and I'll sweat, but it's nothing like being in that
Right.
Mississippi humidity. So
Right. No, I noticed that for the first time. I went the farthest west I've been now is Colorado. We took a trip this year, and it was during the winter, so we were skiing, but like the cold was different. Like I felt like it was colder back home because of the humidity, and than it was
yeah,
when it was like 10 degrees in Colorado. Like I felt like 20 degrees in Mississippi was way colder than like 8 in Colorado. It was
it's
crazy.
strange,
So
very strange. Well, I want to get into all of the things Mississippi State, but let's play time travel for just a second.
I
What
love
if
it.
we were picking up this podcast where we left off the last episode we ever had with Cowbell on campus?
I'm trying to remember exactly where that was too. Because it has been a while. I know. So we had Joe Mo obviously was coming in,
Right.
and was kind of gonna really getting ready to be the new coach
Yep.
at. Mississippi State, and I think we had a lot of really high hopes for him. If I remember right, which I really don't have a lot of memory from that time. I think maybe because I tried to block it all out from when Jomo was our coach. But I think that we were really pumped about him coming in to be the coach. I actually think I remember me and you going up to like meet him or something like that
We
the
did.
day he flew in, which was while we were still doing this. And so, yeah, so I mean, back then I was really ready for Jomo to come in. I mean, we had like the best defense I think we've ever had at Mississippi State with Jeff Simmons and Montez Sweat, Jonathan Abrams at the time. Colin Hill was running back. You know, we had these transfer quarterbacks coming in. Really was things were looking up for us. And now to see what happened with him as the coach there, I would be really disappointed looking back in time traveling right now. So,
like, I wish we could go back to when we were in that closet recording Cowbell on Campus and tell us what has happened since then. Because, okay, so we covered the season going into Joe Moorhead's first season. So the off season. So Dan Mullen had just left, went to Florida. We covered that. One of our most listened to podcasts of ever on Cowbell on Campus was the one where we described what Joe Moorhead's offense was about and how it was a little more fast paced than Dan Mullen. You weren't sitting there a lot. You were actually moving the ball quickly, all that kind of stuff. But think about up to Joe Moorhead's season, what has happened since our boy from Ole Miss pissed in the end zone. And the events that took place after that, where he pees in the end zone, hikes his leg, we win the Egg Bowl. Most Mississippi State fans are like, sweet, you won the Egg Bowl, Joe Moorhead, you're good. Like, let's just rock and roll for another season. And then it just hits the fan. And that off season, Willie Gay gets into a fight, or that past season, Willie Gay gets into a fight with Garrett Schrader, all that kind of stuff. And people are kind of just baffled at what happened in the bowl game that season against Louisville. Me and my wife went. It was terrible because it was cold and we just didn't show up for that game. But all that stuff happened. And I thought about this the other day when we said, hey, let's start back Cowbell off campus now that we're in two separate states. What if we could go back and tell ourselves all the stuff that's happened since then?
I would tell us we were crazy, honestly, you know, because I just was so confident in Joe Moore, not even just Joe Moore himself, but like the people he hired around him. I mean, I was like just baffled at like the guys we were bringing in for recruiting and wide receiver coach and offensive and defensive. Like I just was really confident. And yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks to look back and see that, you know, and then to be so ready for him to leave. I mean, it was like I was ready for him to be fired, you know, especially after that OM game when he just kind of went out and was just kind of like, well, we were going to win that. You know, we won that game. It was going to happen. Like, dude, you won because their guy went in the end zone and acted like he was peeing. Like it what? And then they missed the field goal. Like you got lucky that we won that game even. And then I just don't think he had any control over the team. It's just not what I was expecting.
I wasn't happy that Ole Miss missed the field goal and we won.
Oh yeah, that was definitely a top 5 game for me. So that was one of the best games I've ever been to. And then going to that Louisville game too. I mean, seeing that was like, honestly, at my experience as a Mississippi State fan, that was probably the worst display I have ever seen in my entire life. I'm not even kidding. If I remember right, we opened up that game with like 2 false starts or something, or something crazy like that. And I was like, we've had weeks to prepare, and there was just no preparation. It was sad to watch. Honestly.
Schrader didn't even play, did he?
No, he didn't. No, I honestly don't remember who our quarterback was, if that tells you anything.
Okay, so. Well, let's play catch up here because now we've now hired the Pirate since he's been here for 2 seasons. I mean, even though we've lost games we weren't supposed to lose, we're still doing this sort of. And I feel like going into this season, the expectations are weird. So first question for you, season expectations, what's your record at the end of the season? What's your record? What bowl game we're going to? What do you think?
You know, honestly, it's like such a tough question because like, I really think there's a good chance that we could have a really great season. I think there's another good chance that we could have a really bad season, kind of like last year. Yeah. And I guess if I'm going to even answer that question, I do have to acknowledge like last season, 7-6. That's not necessarily a fantastic season, but we lost 3 games by 3 points or less. So like that changes you from a 7-5 team going into a playoff to a 10-2. And that's just a massive difference in literally 3 ball games right there. from missed field goals. And so I guess when I look at that and I look at our team returning the players we have and everything, I've got to be kind of optimistic going into this year. And I would really think like a 8-4 or 9-3 regular season for us. I think
that's what I've heard from every
expectation.
Mississippi State podcast to Brandon Walker to everybody else. They're saying 8-4, 9-3, and a lot of that does depend on what you just said. A field goal kicker.
Absolutely.
We just kind of sent out some questions, that we were starting the podcast and got some questions. One of the questions that I got was, how confident are you in the transfer portal kicker?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not confident in any kickers at this point. I'm gonna have to watch him kick like several field goals because I don't even know what to think about that. Maybe I should show up for the open tryouts next year if Leach is still having them. But I don't know. I think he's going to be good. And I will say, coming from like West Coast and stuff, I think he will be good. But I don't know what to think until we watch him.
Yeah.
Put some through the uprights.
Dude, I forget how we should have won so many games from. I mean, Memphis was just. I kind of just put an asterisk on that game because.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, whatever. I don't even want to talk about it. Moving forward, like LSU needed a kicker in the LSU game. Yeah. Kentucky was one of the best games we ever played and didn't need a kicker. And looking back on that game, if I looked at that team, I'd tell you 9-3 this year that played against Kentucky last year. Same. But the team, like against Arkansas, great second half, should have won the game, muffed the field goal, like just blew it. And you look at these little spurts across all of last season. Second half of the Auburn game was the best second half we've ever played. I've never seen anything like it. 24 unanswered points, and it blows my mind to see what our team can do, and then what they cannot do some Saturdays. But if I had to put my season expectation into a record, I would say 8-4. Yeah, I think what's interesting, and I've heard many podcasts talk about this, is there are so many games on our schedule that could go either way.
Right. I agree with that. I mean, we have the hardest schedule in the NCAA right now too, or at least in the SEC, which is crazy to think about. And when you're looking at that's the thing. Like when you're looking at our non-conference opponents this year, it's not your typical latex. I mean, it's good programs. I mean, it's teams in Power Fives that obviously I think we should win every one of them, but at the same time, it's not just like we're looking at a bunch of latex and a bunch of non-FBS, non-Power 5 teams. I mean, Arizona. I mean, I think we got like Bowling Green, who we've never played. There's a couple programs in there that are like not. I mean, they're pretty good teams, And so,
how bad does that Arizona games scare you?
It scares me to death, because that's a game that we absolutely should win 10 out of 10 times. But we're going on the road to Arizona. We've never. I mean, I don't know the last time we played them, if we even ever have. I know it's been years. I mean, I'm excited about it, getting to go to that one, which I'm really, really pumped for.
That's going to be awesome.
I'm really nervous about it. So
10 p.m. kickoff for Central Time people, which is Mississippi, Texas, Bama. And man, it's going to be a late night. I'd get up. So on Sunday mornings, our church meets at a Marriott, and I wake up at 5 a.m. because we have to go set up the ballroom at 6. And that night I'm already looking at it going, I'm going to be up till at least like 1 a.m. watching this game.
Right.
And God forbid an overtime game like the BYU game a few years ago where it lasted until 2 or 3 a.m.
Yeah. We don't need that for sure.
And we lost.
That was the worst. That was definitely one of the worst games. I don't even remember that. That's yet again something else that I'm just trying to put out of my brain.
Okay, so season expectations, you're thinking 9-3, 8-4, same 8-4. I mean, if you were to look at it with maroon glasses, I think that 9-3 is your ceiling, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see us in, like you said, the schedule is just so tough. I can't see us winning more than 9 games. I don't know that that's possible for us this year, but
I mean, I think eight wins is even giving us an upset over somebody, So it's going to be tough.
Okay, so of these games, I'm about to give you 4 games. Of these games, which one are we more likely to win? LSU,
all right,
Auburn, Alabama, Ole Miss.
Of those four, oh, that's tough. I mean, like just one out of the four there.
Scratch Alabama, put Texas A&M in there.
Okay, I'm gonna say, oh man, I mean, I obviously want to say OM. That's where my mind goes immediately. But I think the easiest game on the schedule right now, out of all of our SEC opponents too, is Auburn. I mean, I think they're easier than Kentucky and Georgia. I mean, obviously Georgia, but I think they're going to be easier than LSU, A&M, OM. I mean, I think if anyone's weak right now in the West or in the SEC in general, it's them and probably Vandy. So
and Auburn has to come to us this year.
Right.
So I feel good about. I was listening to Thunder and Lightning with Brian Haydad, and he was saying, like, over the last decade, we've kind of owned Auburn a little bit.
We really have.
If you think program long term or whatever, everybody's like, Auburn's obviously the best program, whatever. But over the last 10 years, we've kind of gone to Auburn, and they've come to us, and we're pulling away a little bit. So I agree.
We really are. I think the only one time they beat us really like recently was when they had Cam. And I mean, obviously they had a couple other games, but I mean, that was a totally different team for them when they won the national championship. I swear, just because of him, so.
And we lost by 3.
We lost by 3. Right.
Talk about if we had switched quarterbacks that game and he had committed to Mississippi State like he told us he would.
Yeah. If he, we yet again, we don't have to talk about that. I think he took a little money, but that's okay. So.
Before NIL.
Yeah, free NIL. Now we have to say that. So
yeah, I think Auburn is the right answer there. The thing about Ole Miss is I think Ole Miss fans, their expectations are still here, which is strange to me because of losing Matt Corral. And if Luke Altmaier is going to be your quarterback, then you have to expect a drop off. I mean, even after Dak left, we've got Nick Fitzgerald. He's gotten some snaps, whatever. That's still just a massive drop off. And we lost I think we lost 3 more games the next season without Dak. So it's like they have to be able to expect a drop off, not knowing who their starting quarterback is going to be right now, and 2, knowing that Matt Corral was one of their best players they've had in history of Ole Miss.
He really was, and it is kind of sad to see all the stuff that's been going on over there with like him and just what he said about him and that kind of stuff. And
what an interesting statement.
It's just crazy, it is. Yeah, just to say that he wishes he would have been more competitive there and all that, which I think he was very competitive at OM. I think he had a very good shot. And I think they're I don't want to hate on too much. I think it's a good program for quarterbacks to come through and go to, but I just don't think. I think their expectations are way too high. Because they don't know who their QB is. I mean, they got the transfer that came in, and I mean, is Luke really even the starter right now? I mean, it seems like that, but we're not really even sure, So, and they don't really know who their playmakers are. I don't really even know. I mean, I guess they have people like transfers that are going to come in and try to hit it running pretty quick because they didn't recruit very hard.
Right.
They really just kind of stay in the transfer portal. So it's just going to be. I don't really know what to think about them. I mean, are their transfers going to really be as good as they think they are? I mean, they're expecting those guys to not just come in and like train up. They're expecting them to come in and hit it running immediately. And so it's going to be a completely different team this year than it was last year because of that. And so I just don't have any clue what to expect on them. And I don't think they should be thinking big things either.
It's interesting that I know they won the Sugar Bowl, but they won the Sugar Bowl, but lost the Sugar Bowl. Excuse me. That just proves my point of what I just said. They would have won the Sugar Bowl with Matt Corral. They lost it because he got injured. So I can't see how their expectations are still at high. But while we're on the subject of Ole Miss and we're moving through our points, trying to get through the podcast, what happened with you and the Ole Miss fan on Twitter a few months ago?
Yeah, I pretty much just let it go. It was one of those things where I don't even know what he was talking about. Honestly, I'm still confused to this day. But it was a post that they had put up about more like they were talking kind of about how we brag about being in bowl games so many consecutive years in a row, but we haven't been to a New Year's Six, or we haven't been to 3 New Year's Six bowls in the last 12 years or something like that. And it was just kind of funny that he said that because I'm pretty sure they've lost like all 3 that they've been to. And so that was pretty much the only comment I made was like, well, at least we're going to bowls consistently. We have good teams, and you guys go like, back and forth. And that was really about it. I mean, it was just one of those things where they were just hating to hate, I guess.
Was this around the time that they won the national championship in baseball?
Yes, it was. It
Okay.
was the same time. Yeah, that
So
was all going on while that was
they
happening.
were feeling themselves around that time.
Right.
So
They
that
definitely
makes
were.
sense.
And congrats to him for that. I mean, we did it first, but it's okay.
Yeah, just stay in our shadow. Um, so trying to move to a couple points that we had written down. The balconies. Have you seen all that stuff at the
Oh
stadium
yeah.
that's coming in? What do you think?
Yeah, those are awesome. I mean, I think that's just yeah. I love that they're just kind of adding to. I want to see us continue to add seats and stuff to the
Are you
stadium. So
going to the first game of the season?
I'm gonna try to get to that one. I'm definitely going to some SEC games this year. I just don't know what I mean, just so many weddings around October, which is
Yeah,
another
no
crazy
kid.
thing. So
Um, yeah, don't schedule weddings on Saturdays in October.
right, it's
Um,
like come on, people.
so if you are going to the game, I was going to ask this question because I've talked to so many state fans that are saying they may not go to the game just because of the experience that your TV provides from your own comfort of your living room. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's nothing like a game. It's
Yeah,
to me, it's just nothing like a game. Being in the game. Now, I will say it is a lot harder to get to Mississippi State. So like I love being sitting at the house and watching games, and I love
yeah.
that. But if I have a chance to, I'm going to be in the stadium with the fans. I think that's where I want to be, and that's where I love to be. So and I know I'm a little different than a lot of people because I'll sit by myself and scream like I would if there was 50,000 people around me. So
I feel that. I understand. Okay, so we'll kind of end the show with this. We're talking about, or we're kind of bringing it back to remember the true and false days of Cowbell on campus. I would present a question to Addison. Addison would respond with true or false and his explanation behind it. So, first true and false question for you is: Will Rogers throws for 5,000 yards on the season?
true. I
Why?
mean, I don't really even think I need much explanation there. That's a pretty easy. He's definitely going to do that. So,
So he was really close last year,
hmm
really close. And I think so. The number being thrown around that he averaged per game was 368 yards per game.
right,
All it would take to throw for over 5,000 yards, I think, is like an extra 10 yards per game.
right.
Let me make sure I'm doing that correctly. So,
Because I know
what?
he threw for like 4,740 yards or something like that, like right around that range. And so yeah, so you're absolutely right. I think if you do that right, that's like just an extra 10 to 15 yards a
Yep.
game, and then we're
He would
there.
need to throw for 385 yards a game, including the bowl game, if
Right.
to be able to hit 500. I mean 5,000. So you think
Yeah.
that's true without a doubt?
I think that's true. I think that should be true. Yeah, I want to see an improvement in him, and I want to see a big one. So that's it. I mean, if 5,000 yards that's where he should be aiming for at least.
I agree. True or false? Mississippi State beats Texas A&M for the second year in a row.
True. That's one of my upset wins, I would say. We just have their number. We play well against them. We've played well against them since they've been in the SEC. Even when they've beaten us, even with Johnny Manziel, where he was doing things that made our defenders look like they were frozen in ice. We played well against them. So I think we match up well, and I think that's a game we win.
I like it. True or false? Mississippi State has a first team all SEC receiver.
I think it should be true this year. That's one of the gaps I feel like we are having. We're going to need a playmaker. We
Yeah,
need I feel like Will Rogers is going to do a lot better like finding the receiver quickly, and I think we'll have a lot of guys get a lot of catches, and that's great. And I want to see that. I want to see us spread the field out and get a lot of guys to touch the ball. And I want to have another Makai Polk. I think Jaden Wiley could be that guy. But I want someone that's more than Makai Polk. Like I want yards after the catch, and I want broken tackles and just big plays. And I think we're going to need that for us to, if we're going to win 9, 10 games this year, we got to have somebody like that. So we got to
for
have an
sure.
all SEC receiver. So I think it's true, but I think that there's going to be a lot of work to get to that point. So,
Okay, so that's a perfect time to bring in your buddy's question. Remind me what that question was.
yes. Here, let me pull it up real quick. The
It's
one
about
about
the
our breakout
playmaker.
player.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was our biggest, Avery sent in this, who would be our biggest breakout player this year? Obviously not somebody that's like a known name for us. So not like a Will Rogers or anybody like that. So who do you
Yeah.
think that would be?
Well, I mean, the first name that comes to mind, but his name is known, is Jaden Wally. Has to be the breakout player, because last year he did provide a, hey, look at me, which was in turn turned into a Mekhi Polk show. Most games it just made defenders look at him a lot, but Mekhi Polk just outshined him over and over and over again, which is why he got drafted. But Jaden Walley has to turn up, like you were just talking about, to be able to break tackles after the catch. But if I had to throw in a name that's not well known, I don't even know that this name isn't well known, but Tulu Griffin had so many eye-opening moments last year where, I mean, off of kickoff returns, off of yards after the catch. I mean, I can't help but think about the little screenplay that he does, that he goes under the receiver and would pick up 7 or 8 yards every single time he touched the ball. So if I had to choose one player, I'd probably choose Tulu. I guess he's a little less known than Jaden Walley. How about you?
I would actually say the same exact thing that you said with Tulu. That was where my head was going. Yeah, he is kind of known on the offense, but he wasn't somebody that we targeted a lot on when we were throwing passes or anything. It was more like real specific plays to get him the ball. But this year we're going to have to utilize him in short screens or short slants or something. I feel like, and he's got so much speed over the middle. I think we're just going to have to utilize him in different ways, and I think that's going to be a breakout player that we're talking about more throughout the season. I think we'll talk about him more consistently than just, did you see that play he made this weekend?
Yeah, I agree. This kind of brings up the question about the system, quote unquote. It frustrates me a little bit to hear radio hosts, podcast hosts talk about this all the time. And it's frustrating to hear, like, man, Will Rogers threw for over 5,000 yards, but it was because of the system. What are your thoughts on the system?
I mean, I feel like we do have to acknowledge, like, if I'm looking at it, looking at the stats, Bryce Young threw 4,800, Will Rogers threw 4,700. That's your top 2 guys in the SEC. Will Rogers in the passing yards, but Bryce ran for way more than him. I just want to acknowledge that. And if you're looking at stats on a passing, when it comes out, like, Will Rogers has to be at the top. We are running an air raid system. We are not focusing on the run. So we have to realize that if he's not one of the top passers in the SEC, then we're doing something wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
But with that being said, I think it works. I don't think there's any issues with what we're doing. And I actually read something about it last year that says, like, when you're looking at run plays, that normally comes like 70 to 80% of those are audibles on the line of scrimmage. And I think that's the biggest gap in our offense, is just that Will Rogers is not 100% confident in himself. Like, you see all of our pass plays over the middle are short plays. All of our pass plays that are deep or out wide. Like, we're not throwing deep over the middle because I don't think there's confidence there. I don't think and we do sometimes. I'm just saying, most of the time we're going deep to the wide or short over the middle or short to the wide. And I think that there's a couple things that once they start to click for him, it's going to be a totally different offense. If you go watch the Auburn game, the second half of it, that is the best description of what the air raid could and should look like. They had the same defense that they've been running that was working. It wasn't like they got out of a scheme or anything like that. It wasn't like anything changed for them. It was just that it clicked in that moment for Will Rogers, where he could look at the defense, read it, and then pick it apart. There's always someone open. He's just got to find the guy. And I think that it just boils down to his ability as a QB at the end of the day. And we're seeing him get so much better and become that leader. And if he can continue to do that and learn how to read defenses and make quick decisions, then he will be a dominant guy. And the system that they're talking about will definitely work. It just there's just a couple kinks to it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings up last 2 true and false questions, and we'll end the show for today. So, true or false, Will Rogers is a good quarterback, and it's not because of the system?
True, 100% true. I mean, yes, he is definitely fitting the system. I mean, he played in high school, very similar system. But no, absolutely true. I mean, look at the talent we've got on the bench. I mean, I could name 4 guys right now that would be playing at other D1 schools and starting. So we can't look at those guys and say that Will Rogers is not a good quarterback, because he's a leader, and he's a learner. He's very interested in learning and growing. And yes, he is definitely a good quarterback. no doubt.
I agree. I think the answer to that is Kentucky's game last year of the 92% completion rating. He didn't throw for over 400 yards. He threw for around 350, 360, his average, but
Right.
he was 36 of 39 passing.
Insane.
The kid
Insane.
was just putting it on the money every time. There's a couple passes in my head that just stand out from that game because he couldn't have put the ball any better.
Right.
And so I agree. I think he's a good quarterback. I think people need to cut him a little slack because he's going to make mistakes if you throw 60 times a game.
No,
Um,
absolutely.
you're gonna there's gonna be times where you make mistakes, but I think he is a good quarterback. All right, last question. We've got 9 minutes left. True or false? Mike Leach adds more of the run game into his offense this season.
True. I think he started to do it towards the end of last year. I think this is different for him. He's realizing that you got to have some run game in the SEC. You got to have something that you got to have something to where they can't just drop 8 every time. And with that being said, not just because they can drop 8, but because they can drop 8 and their 3 defensive linemen are going to be studs. That are going to be tearing our offensive linemen up every single snap. So we got to have something to change it up, to kind of mix our scheme up to where we're just making the defense look differently, I guess. I think he does run more. With that being said, I think he wants to run more also to bring more running backs in, because he's realizing how well did Marks do for us last year just off of passes and running alone. So I think that's something he definitely wants to put more emphasis on. He's actually already talked about it some in spring camp, or not spring camp, but the camp he's in right now. And so I feel like, I definitely think we're going to see more running this year. And I think it's going to be a lot more to open up the pass from the backfield.
Completely agree. I hope that's the case too, because you saw it, little spurts of it last year, and every time he did it, it worked, and it would open up more and more in that system. So I agree. That's a great way to end this first episode of the podcast. And because we'll be able to add in some things in our next episode, hopefully we'll be able to talk about a commitment that Mississippi State will get between now and the time we record our next one. That will really shift things in this Mike Leach system if we get that commitment. Okay, so the way this will work is we'll record one episode a week. They'll be posted on Fridays of each week, and we'll try to go into the season as much as we can, and everything will be posted on Apple Podcasts and YouTube, and of course For Whom the Cowbell Tolls. So can't forget to thank our sponsors, forwhomthecowbelltolls.com, for sponsoring this podcast, and that'll be it for our first episode. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank y'all.